Okay, here's my guitar I'm going to be refinishing. This is a 2019 Gibson Les Paul Junior Tribute in this brown color. You can see it's got very open pores. It should take the TV yellow process nicely. I've made quite a few updates to this guitar. Mainly the bridge, and I added the Dave Grissom P90, which has 3 voicings: single coil, regular P90, modern P90. It's got a nice rosewood fretboard on it. One of the other things I did to this thing, modification-wise, is I added hip shot locking tuners. Gotta have locking tuners. I had to ream the holes out because I had the vintage style. And yeah, I love these hip shots. Another thing I like about this guitar a lot, it's got a little bit of flame in the neck. The neck is maple. You can see where I've worn through in a couple spots. And I've added some True Oil to it. That's why it's so smooth and shiny. It makes this thing really, really fast to play. Just the back. And I also added shallower strap locks to it because I do gig with this thing. So these are the main products I'm going to be using in the refinishing process. Supposedly, to do a TV yellow finish properly, it's white, grain filler, a transparent yellow, and then clear over top of that. So that's how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to start off by taking the original brown finish off, leaving the pores exposed, and then I'm going to spray this vintage white StewMac vintage lacquer over top of it. And then I'm going to grain fill with this Goodfilla wood grain filler. It's a mahogany color. Once that's all sanded down and only filling the pores, I will take the nitrocellulose lacquer. I will be adding this trans tint, which is an amber. It's also supposedly the same stuff that StewMac sells. I'm not really sure. Once I get to the desired yellow, which will probably be more on like the vintage TV color, not so much yellow, I will add probably multiple coats of this guitar lacquer clear with no tint in it over top of it, and then wet sand and buff it to a shine. One other thing I'm going to be doing is adding this tortoise shell pickguard to it. That should finish off the look nicely. So that's about it. This is the guitar we're going to be doing the TV yellow finish on. I don't really care for the brown, but I bought this thing at Z-Zounds for a pretty smoking deal. It was a scratch and dent, and honestly, when I got it, I couldn't even find out what was scratched or dented on it. I think I picked it up with tax and shipping for like $530 or something like that. It's been a really great guitar. I've gigged with it quite a bit. I've done some recordings with it. It plays great. This pickup, it sounds great. Yeah, there's a good shot of all the pores that'll be filled up and showing through the transparent TV yellow finish. So stay tuned. I'm going to turn this into a Johnny Thunders inspired Les Paul Jr. TV yellow, mainly because I'm a pretty big fan of his, and secondly, I really don't like this color. Okay, so we are going to start tearing this thing down, getting ready for the painting process. Okay, so she's all stripped down now. I do have a few spots you can't really see, maybe a little bit, some nicks, some dings that I'm going to sand out. Like I said, this thing has been heavily played, and I do gig with it. Back here, there's some buckle rash type stuff going on. Right there. Couple little dings, if I get my light right. So I will be sanding those out. I'm also going to do some stuff with the neck. I'm not going to paint it yellow. It is maple. I think what I'm going to do is sand the true oil off, stain it, and then re-true oil it. Let's see if I can get some of this figuring in the neck to pop. So next up is sanding. Okay, this is after one wash coat of white and one full coat of white. You can see that they put them on light. You can still see all the wood grain. You don't want to fill those up with lacquer. With the process of spraying the white, you want to put enough light coats on that covers, but you don't want to fill those pores. That's what we're going to use the grain fill for. Couple more coats, light coats of white, and we'll be ready to grain fill after letting it sit for a couple days. Okay, here we are adding the wood grain filler. What I got is an old sock. Put the filler on and rub sideways to get it on, then a circular motion. Against that edge there. Now obviously some of the grain's going to be more defined than others. It's wood. It's nothing man-made, so it's not even, but you can see it kind of soaking into the grain there. Kind of wiping it off. Once it gets a little dry, take a damp, very almost dry cloth, just a slight bit of moisture on it, and then I scrub sideways, a little area at a time, dry it off. And I'm doing it this way so you don't have to do any sanding. Obviously you have to clean this up some more. Just wanted to demonstrate the technique I was using. See, the grain's still in there pretty good. And might have to put a couple coats on to get it filled up, but I definitely don't want to set it on there and leave it sit and have to sand it off, because the white is very thin and I don't want to sand through the wood. So another coat of this and we should be done. Okay, after the grain fill's on, the rest of the residue is rubbed off, I like to take 400 grit sandpaper and kind of sand dry lightly along with the grain to get rid of any extra staining that the fill has done to the white, which it will stain it. I said do it lightly. You don't want to sand through the white. You can see I got a nice even color. Nice even grain fill. Obviously some spots are more sparse with the grain than others. That's just how wood is. Okay, so the next step is going to be spraying over the top of this with the TV yellow. Okay, now we take the lacquer and dump some in here. Go into that first one down there. I don't know how much much I'm going to need actually to get the coverage I want. Dip a few drops. Of the amber dye in it. And stir it up. Let's see what we got. It looks really brown, but if you look at the color, it's very, very light yellow. So we're going to start with that and go from there. After 2 coats of the transparent yellow, this is what the body looks like. Still see all the filler and a nice wood grain. I kept it a little on the paler side. Some of these can be very ambered over, some of them almost white, but this is the color I wanted. And tomorrow we will start shooting clear. After 6 coats of clear lacquer, this is what it looks like. It's a little rough. You can see it sunk a little bit where we did the grain fill. And we didn't do a traditional grain fill, like put it on, let it dry, and sand it off, because we didn't want to sand any of the white that we used for the base coat. So we're going to have to sand some of this off and get it flat. Got some 600 grit wet dry sandpaper from the auto parts store, a little bit of water with some Dove or some dish soap in it. Can't remember which. And then we're going to wet sand this. Be very careful around any open spots like here or any of the holes for the pick guard, because water will get in those and it will crack your finish. So for those spots you want to do dry. Alright, this has been wet sanded down to 600 grit. Let's see, it's flat. It's not shiny. Now we're going to go ahead and put about 4 more coats of clear on it and we should be good. Okay, we've begun the wet sanding process. I have already wet sanded this with 1000 grit and 1500 grit going in alternate directions. Now I'm sanding with 2000. Make sure you keep this wet. I have a little cup here with water with some Dawn dish soap. Keep the sandpaper from loading up. And you just sand that until it's smooth. It's hard to see because it's flat now, but that looks pretty good. Next up, polish. After polishing, this is what it looks like. I also sprayed some clear coat on the headstock so it's nice and shiny now. How shiny that is. Same with the back. Thing turned out pretty good. I did a little bit of staining on the neck and put True Oil over top of it. Some of that nice flame came out. And I smoothed that out, got it all polished up. It'll be super fast to play. So next up is final assembly. Here is the finished product. I put a new Goto, I think it's a 510 UB bridge on this. So see all the wood grain, tortoiseshell pick guard. Yeah, this thing turned out pretty damn good. Very happy with it. There's the back. Going up that maple neck. Another thing I did do is I replaced the truss rod cover. And as I said before, I re-cleared the headstock. It's hard to tell here, but it is a gloss. So yeah, there it is. The completed Les Paul Jr. DC Tribute conversion to TV yellow. Thanks for watching.